Hi people, Moino from Kirgin as always, Andrew as usual. Yeah, as you can tell, as always, Andrew as usual, based on the header of this video, I'm going to briefly discuss magical tools that are used in witchcraft, for example, and the likes or similar. Now, the tools that I'm referring to are things such as a dog skull, a bunch of herbs, and similar. Those kind of tools and/or implements, if you want to call them that, or trinkets, if you will, even. Now, you'll see stuff like that in witchcraft, in Wicca, and so on and so forth. And in the past, I've already brought up that generally speaking, all of these things that you'll come across, especially in both of the aforementioned magical systems, is and related is it's an extension of, or a representation, better said, of the practitioner's intent. As someone practices, and all of those things that you're seeing, like a picture of the target, fingernails, all of those things represent intent, amongst other things. Other things being, for example, I'm not going to bring up everything, of course, I already mentioned that. Or things such as, for example, fingernails represent a spiritual bond with the target, or it establishes one, better said, and it just goes on like that. Now, what I am going to bring up is for people that were wondering why, for example, items that are hard to find, like for example herbs that are hard to find, the same way that, for example, witches use wolf's bane, and they use other kind of plants that have specific properties that are not easily obtainable, mugwort, it just goes on. Believe me, for example, in African witchcraft, or witchcraft that is practiced by Africans, specifically with an ethnic and or cultural affinity, you'll come across crazier stuff, a hyena skull, or a cleaned hyena skull, you name it, a bunch of stuff, the tooth of a lion or similar, you name it. Now, these things, other than having the aforementioned definitions within the context of the practice of the practitioner, of him or her that practices, these things are also used in general, specifically because they're used in general specifically because, how do I put this? Because they produce a certain result when combined. It's like cooking, putting certain things together, certain ingredients, certain herbs and spices produces a delicious meal as an outcome, as the end result, and it's the same thing. So it's again like no different in chemistry, but within an occult context, basic alchemelia and herbology, and so on and so forth. And for people that were wondering where these people got it from, generally speaking, it was obtained through knowledge by conversing with spirits. Like for example, a guy practices necromancy. The dead person he or she is working with will tell him or her, hey, you need to get these ingredients together, you put all of these things together, and then it produces such and such an effect. So instead of a ritual, or instead of just overall utilizing spiritual energy to attain results, the aforementioned items are used, or tools or trinkets or herbs, you name it. The aforementioned tools are used, and if you are wondering why, it's because it's generally speaking, depending on the situation, not generally speaking, within a certain context or under certain conditions, it's more practical potentially and even more effective. But again, this is purely speculative at best, honestly. It depends purely on the practitioner as a whole. Some people simply do it, some practitioners, because they're used to it. Because usually, and usually with these practitioners, it's the case that they attain that knowledge through word of mouth, especially in non-Western countries, whereas in Western countries things are more documented and free for anyone to use, essentially. And that's pretty much it. Those two examples are enough. That's how that knowledge is usually attained. So it's more of a custom or a habit. They're accustomed to it. Because honestly, personally, up to this point, I've never had an interest in occult herbology or alchemelia or similar, to the point where I'm going to say, okay, I'm just going to mix a bunch of concoctions together, etc., where I'm going to like open a lab or something. No, I prefer going for the jugular right away, even if I say so myself, in a direct manner by just throwing energy, so to speak, at a target or at an objective. But that, again, that's just the way I'm used to working, and generally speaking, this is better and it's more optimal. But again, there are exceptions, of course. Sometimes it might be more practical to use what I am discussing as a subject or as a topic, like I already said earlier. Let me see if there was anything else I was going to mention. Yeah, check anything of use, link to the description below, anything you might have not seen already, like my post or article on witchcraft and its embedded videos. I'm going to embed this video as well in it. I'm sorry, I'm just briefly thinking. Let me see if I missed something. Did I miss something? No, no. Quite similar to the Lesser Key of Solomon Book 1, the Goetia, where you need to have like a lion's belt and stuff like that. A bunch of extravagant, outlandish things that are quite hard to find, especially within a modern context. Yeah, some of these things are hard to find. You'll barely be able to find any of these things. In some places you'll find them, but I mean, seriously, try finding hemlock or wolf's bane, like I said. It's quite difficult. It's quite difficult, especially due to the fact that these plants are so dangerous. For example, with wolf's bane, and it just goes on like that. But bottom line in case is, the point in case is, or the bottom line is, that generally speaking, that knowledge is attained through spirits, interacting with spirits, as in you sit down with a spirit that specializes in alchemelia or in herbology is going to tell you, okay, you mix this together with this together and this and this and that at this day, on this day, and this hour for you, like a Wednesday at 5 p.m. for you in your time zone, then it will automatically have strong healing properties, and it does have like an expiration date, so its potency will wear off after a week if not used or ingested or whatever, you know, like that. It seems quite simple enough, and within this context it is. From an academia based perspective it is, but of course when actually in doing so it can prove to be quite complex. In any case, that's it. I'll see you guys later. Let me know if you have any other questions. Bye.